What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Midhunter Comics, and today I'm going over my most requested video ever, because we're going to tackle the age-old debate of a cameo versus a first appearance. Before I dive in, guys, don't forget to like and comment down below. I'm going to be giving many examples and definitions of first appearance versus cameos in this video, but I'm not going to be able to list them all, so comment down below which ones we haven't gone over and what you think is a true first appearance or just a cameo. By liking and commenting on this video, you are entering into the 8,000 subscriber giveaway, in which I'll be giving away the complete run of Shadow of the Bat, and I will also be shipping internationally. So what do you think when you hear the term first appearance? Does that not mean a character is introduced in a comic? That's the first appearance. Technically, yes, that is a first appearance, but collectors have decided to give a further distinction to whether that first appearance is a big story-defining change or a tiny little maybe one or two panel thing. Now, a lot of you out there don't even think the word cameo should be used. After all, if a character that's never been established before is making an appearance, it has to therefore logically be a first appearance. But myself and many other collectors don't look at the term cameo so literally. Me and the overwhelming majority like having that distinction because certain books, a character just explodes onto the screen and you get a lot of them. Sometimes it's a very minuscule thing and people don't like viewing that as a first appearance. They like viewing a more notable later appearance as the first appearance. By the way, due to overwhelming majority, we are not considering previews to be first appearances. Additionally, the way I see things is first appearance versus first full appearance, but we're not doing that today. We're merely talking about, is that first appearance a cameo or is that a true first appearance? Now, obviously, you're going to have oddball situations and characters like Jessica Cruz Green Lantern, which has first cameo, first appearance, first face revealed. But for the most part, we're here to talk about that cameo versus full appearance debate. So to do this, we needed a definition to stick to for this video. So I turned to you and I asked for a definition. And by overwhelming majority, you all said a cameo is more than a cameo if it is more than one panel with dialogue and a name drop preferred but not required. Let's go over that one more time. The definition we'll be using in this video, decided upon by you, the fans. More than one panel, dialogue preferred, name drop preferred. Meaning, if it's just one panel, that's still a cameo. So because of our non-literal take on what a cameo is, we are going to find that there are certain books that hold the distinction of a cameo, and there are going to be certain books that are known as cameos that really are more like first appearances. Not everyone's going to use the same definition, and that's fine. It's okay to disagree. Pop it down in the comments why you think so. Let's start off with the most obvious example, probably the example you guys clicked on this video to hear me talk about. Let's talk about that first appearance of Wolverine. Everybody knows for many, many decades now that Wolverine first appeared in Hulk 181, but by this point probably 99% of you are aware that Wolverine does appear on that final page of the previous issue, Hulk 180. So this is something that's been talked about for decades. Is that a cameo or is that a first appearance? If we apply our definition of it has to be more than one panel with dialogue preferred and name drop preferred, I think that we have to therefore elevate this from cameo status to a first appearance. Here's why. Look at this panel spread down here. Yes, obviously on the right we see Wolverine in full form with dialogue and talking about his own name. In the panel to the left, he's even talking then, and there's a narration talking about him coming up. Surprising Hulk. If it were just the narration, maybe I wouldn't give it. But you can see Wolverine's text bubbles in this panel to the left, then we have his full reveal on the right. To me, this counts as two panels, allowing this to fall as a first appearance of Wolverine. Again, we're not talking about first full appearances, but obviously I think it's safe to say that Hulk 181 would be a first full appearance of Wolverine, and beautiful cover. Let's keep things controversial and move on to Venom. Here's another one that's been argued for decades. Amazing Spider-Man 299 versus 300. And we're faced with a very similar situation. I think though, even more than Hulk 180, this appearance of Venom is pretty substantial. It is 2 full pages long, the second page being an entire full spread of Venom. It does include dialogue and a full body shot of Venom. I think therefore that this has multiple panels and is a couple pages worth of Venom. We gotta count this as the first appearance of Venom. Similarly to Hulk 181, we're not here to talk about first full appearances, but yes, I think it's safe to say that 300 is the first full appearance. So what then is the cameo of Venom? I think by our definition we would have to give it to Amazing Spider-Man 298. 298 is a big deal for Venom collectors because on this final page we have our first appearance of Eddie Brock. By our definition, this is a first appearance of Eddie Brock because we see him in several panels. He's got plenty of dialogue. There's just a lot going on here. But it's also the first cameo of Venom because we get 1.5 panels showing that symbiote Venom hand. By our definition, this would therefore be the first cameo of Venom and the first appearance of Eddie Brock. Experienced Venom heads would love to bring up Web of Spider-Man 18 and 24, in which we see Spidey pushed out in front of a train tracks by a mysterious hand. 8 years later, they tried to include that was actually Eddie Brock, but the reality is it was not intended to be Eddie Brock's hand, and it is clearly an effeminate hand, not of the likes of Eddie. I will say, though, that the Web of Spider-Man 24 could be something. At least that one looks like a dark silhouette of what appears to be more of a man. There might be something there, but the reality is it was not intended on being Eddie Brock when that was written. Let's keep it in the symbiote family. Let's talk about Carnage. My copy of 361, my 9.8 that normally sits right up there, but it's actually on the way to be signed by Mark Bagley, is considered to be the first appearance of Carnage. Funny thing is, Cletus Cassidy was bopping around for more than a few issues prior to 361. But if we really want to look at Carnage specifically, we got to look at 360 versus 361. Did you know that there is an entire page devoted to Carnage? Carnage, not Cletus, but Carnage in 360, in which it shows dialogue, a full name drop, and a face reveal. Sorry, but if going by our definition, and most people's definition, that would have to be a first appearance of Carnage. Let's talk about Mary Jane. Everybody knows that iconic scene in which she arrives at the final pages of issue 42 saying, "Face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot." Side note, man, Mary Jane was so cocky back then. Well, for the longest time, people have considered Amazing Spider-Man 25 to be her cameo, and I don't think that's quite fair. It's true, her face isn't revealed, but she is mentioned or shown in 5 different panels in issue 25. I think that has to elevate that from cameo to a first appearance, don't you? My favorite cover of the two is still issue 42, just because of her iconic entrance. It's just such a classic panel to me, and it's just one that I love. And that's the thing, a lot of these covers or panels that are considered to be the first appearance, that are actually the second, are usually considered it because it's the better art or the better cover, whatever have you. And people are fiercely loyal to that awesome art. Let's give Spidey a break and talk about Gambit. Now, by our definition, and pretty much any definition, X-Men 266 is just not the first appearance of Gambit at all. This is one of the ones where I think there's a little less room for debate. X-Men Annual 14 is the first appearance of Gambit. I read the issue just before the making of this video. And guys, he is in the comics on 10 different pages and is in 20 different panels. He has an entire page worth of dialogue, and he is named. In a conversation talking to Storm, he is shown as Gambit. Not to mention, he looks like the Gambit we still pretty much have today. Sorry, X-Men 266, but this not only counts as first appearance of Gambit, this is almost grounds for first full appearance of Gambit. A quick little bit of fun trivia on these two issues, it was actually supposed to be 266 which came first, which if you read them together, it does make sense. But X-Men Annual 14 ended up being published prior. But what did I tell you guys about that art? 266 is clearly the better cover, so people are fiercely loyal to that art. Let's keep talking X-Men and move on to Mystique. Now here's one that puts our definition into some crosshairs here, or through some binoculars, I should say. In Ms. Marvel number 16, we see a Mystique, although she doesn't look like Mystique, and that's because she's in regular human form disguised as somebody. Looking at Ms. Marvel through some binoculars, she has a couple bits of dialogue, but does show up in 2 panels. But if we stick by our definition of having dialogue and being over 1 panel, this technically would elevate from Cameo into first appearance status. Do I still feel a little weird about calling that one a first appearance? A little bit. Yeah, I do. I still kind of think of Ms. Marvel 18 as the true first appearance of Mystique. She's even shown in her blue form in that one. But alas, we made a definition, so I'm sticking to it. Ms. Marvel 16, therefore, even though she's not named, we're calling it a first appearance. Let's give Marvel a rest and toss up some DC examples here. How about another highly debated one of Man of Steel 18 versus 17, first appearance of Doomsday. Now in 17, might be more than just a cameo. Check it out, that last page, not only does it drop the name Doomsday at the bottom, but it's 4 very wide panels of clearly an unmistakable Doomsday hand trying to break through the wall. It shows all the spikes on his hand. I think, therefore, that should count as a first appearance of Doomsday, with Man of Steel 18 being maybe a first full appearance of Doomsday in his containment suit, with Man of Steel 19 being the first full appearance of Doomsday fully revealed without any containment suit. How about Batman 106, a very recent comic here. This one's Miracle Molly. Most of you are calling the first appearance 108, but she is heavily in 106. I count 5 panels total in which she's being talked to or shown. 3 panels clearly show her with a significant amount of dialogue. She's even talking with Batman at one point. Throw a couple extra panels in which people are talking to her on the radio, and the fact that it's spread over 3 pages. I don't know, guys. That's not a cameo. That's a first appearance. How about another recent example of Nightwing 81, what people are starting to call the first appearance of a new villain, Heartless. That's all fine and good, but how about the fact that Heartless was in several pages of Nightwing 79, and had another appearance even in Nightwing 80? Seems weird to call that one a first appearance. Check it out. In 79, you can see Heartless in action, with a decent amount of dialogue, and you can even make out Heartless's look through the shadows on one of the panels. To me, this is way more than just a cameo and does elevate it to a first appearance status. How about Green Lantern 25? This is an interesting one. According to CGC, it's the first appearance of Larfleeze and Atrocitus. If you look for Larfleeze and Atrocitus, the only place that you'll find them is in one panel, even though it's a big panel, a full pager. It just shows them, they're not named, they don't have any dialogue, it just shows them fighting in this eternal battle of colors. Also, it's the first cameo of Saint Walker. For whatever reason, that's not mentioned on the CGC label. That, by our definition, cannot be a first appearance. Rather, that's just a tiny little cameo. Still, that's a noticeable book because of its cameo status for several characters that end up being a pretty big deal in the Green Lantern universe. Atrocitus' full appearance for me is Green Lantern 28, Larfleeze in 39. How about talking about our 357 here? First appearance of Jason Todd and first full appearance of Killer Croc, it says. Now, Killer Croc, if you don't know, had a lot of weirdness going on. There was a big time where he was a gangster and he was completely shrouded in an overcoat and hat, so you didn't know that he looked like a crocodile for several issues. But I think his first appearance belongs with Detective Comics 523. Even though he's not revealed as being a legit crocodile man yet, he's called Croc. It's 1.5 full pages. It's about 5 panels. He's got a significant amount of dialogue. And did I mention he's even called Croc? Guys, that's a first appearance. Even if it is first appearance, face not revealed, whatever you want to do there, that's a legitimate first appearance. But what really are cameos by our definition and nothing more? Batman 89. First appearance of Punchline, it's more of a cameo, for sure. That's a cameo that's definitely a cameo. One panel, only half of her face shown. She does have some dialogue, but that's about it. It really is just that and nothing more. I think the distinction of a first appearance really should be saved for Hell Arisen 3. Once again, I find myself mentioning Batman 357, and that's because it says it's the first appearance of Jason Todd, but he's only shown in one panel and he's not outright mentioned by name. That's a cameo, boys and girls. That's a cameo. How about Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen 134, our first appearance of Darkseid? Only it's really a cameo. Darkseid's on a TV screen in one panel, and it doesn't really look like Darkseid, by the way. He's got like skin tones. It's not quite right, and it really is just one panel. Now, in the next panel, he is mentioned by name, but it's a narration of a different character. If it was still Darkseid talking through the screen, if it was his dialogue that carried over, I think then I could have maybe counted it as being two panels, but it's just one panel, and therefore, by our definition, it's a cameo. Not quite the first appearance distinction. That should go to Forever People number 1. Alright, and now what about Batman Superman? Everybody knows 23 for being the first appearance of Batman Beyond outside of the animated continuity, because it's got several bits of dialogue, and it even calls him Tim, which is very controversial, not Terry McGinnis. But he does appear in one page, one panel, with a little bit of dialogue in Batman Superman 22. Still though, by our definition, that one's a cameo. The first appearance is reserved for Batman Superman 23. So guys, thanks so much for pushing me to finally do this video. I've been trying to do it for a long time, and I know you've been asking for it for about a year. I know a lot of you are much more loose with your definitions, and wherever you see like a toe in the corner, you count that as a first appearance. And some of you are so tight that it could be a couple pages worth of stuff showing a character, and you still say, no, that's only a cameo. And the thing is, no one's really wrong. This is subjective. So I'm not going to say that you're wrong. I will say that we based our definition on a majority vote. This is what most people tend to say. I'm even in the minority myself. I have tighter restrictions on what I call a cameo. I call it anything over 3 panels that needs dialogue and a name drop in order to be a first appearance. Otherwise, it's just a cameo to me. But I recognize that I'm in the minority, and that's okay. And that's the beautiful thing about this, guys, is there's gonna be different perspectives on everything. But it is nice to shed a little light that just because it's got that cool cover and people have been calling it a first appearance for years, doesn't mean that it's necessarily the very first appearance. There's a lot we didn't go over in this video, guys. We didn't talk about Hellboy, we didn't talk about Crossbones, we didn't talk about Ultron, so anything we didn't talk about, drop it in the comments down below. I want to know, what do you consider to be a cameo or a first appearance? As always, guys, be respectful, be nice, be mindful of other opinions, and keep on hunting.